legend. I run with the crew that's making the moves. Get out of the way, we coming through. We got this, never stopping, and we won't lose. No, we can't lose. Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah. We are the legends. We are the legends. Yeah. Are you ready? We are the legends. We are the legends.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV this Thursday night. It is time for the V8 Veterans Championship by RaceKraft Simulations. Season 21 has turned out to be one heck of a season, as always with V8 Vets, and this is the 6th round of this season, the Tuscany 200 at Mugello, a track where we've only seen V8 Veterans go once before for the championship finale a couple of seasons back. That showdown between Scott Gamble and Kenneth Latter, which unfortunately ended in heartbreak for Ken. Let's see how well they do here tonight on the 24th of October. Bringing it to you live here on SimSpeed TV on YouTube. It's me, Reese Gardner, filling in for Scott Rankin. He's away for the next couple of weeks, so you get to enjoy my dulcet tones alongside the same dulcet tones of David Haynes, with Dan Yeaman behind the scenes bringing you these live pictures. Well, David, I am looking forward to this one. Mugello, a fantastic circuit. I enjoy watching racing at this track, whatever series it is. Now we get to see these 600 plus horsepower V8 monsters race around it on a fixed setup.
Sì, espresso gelati Mugello. It's like live, laugh, love, but in Italian, I think. And it's sort of in this weird little mountain pass here. There's mountain range one side, mountain range the other. We're in this little secret valley with a couple of towns. And this racetrack that's hosted F1, but what you notice is so many fast, medium speed corners, long corners. And this kind of famous front straight now got a bit of a wiggle in it, got a little bit of elevation in it. But from picking up the throttle in the final corner to the braking zone at turn 1, a long run. You pick up a lot of speed, a lot of chance to slipstream, and well, chaos can happen.
Yeah, Mugello, before it hosted the Tuscan Grand Prix in 2020, it was more known as a motorcycle racing circuit, though it does host car racing, and it's popular as a testing venue no matter how many wheels your vehicle has. It's defined, yes, by the speed through these corners. There's no real slow corners around this track, and the entire first half of the lap is punctuated by those, I'd say they're halfway between S-bends and chicanes at turns 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5, and elevation change is a big part of this track as well, flowing through the corners, making sure that you have the grip you need for traction off the exit of every single corner here. The curbs are flat, wide, and smooth. It's a motorcycle circuit through and through, so you could push the limits quite a bit here. Well, making our way into this round of the championship, we'll take a look at how things are in the standings. Scott Gamble and Kenneth Latta are the only drivers to not have their standings change from the previous round. Michael Whiting making his way up to 14th, gaining 7 positions with a 3rd place at the previous round. Sean McNamara missed the previous round, and so he has lost 12 positions in the championship standings. He wasn't 3rd. Everyone behind him has had their positions altered, some as a result. Of course, we have to keep in mind there are 2 drop rounds that you can use in V8 Vets. Those will start coming into effect from next week, so we'll have that discussion this time in 7 days. I'm looking forward to seeing what Michael Stewart will be able to do here, gaining 3 spots from the previous round. Matt Vanderkraan as well, getting into the top 10 thanks to various goings on throughout the field. But for now, David, Scott Gamble 50 points ahead of Kenneth Latta, and he's looking reasonably comfortable in that championship lead.
Yeah, there's only been one race this season where Scott Gamble didn't look completely dominant. It was Long Beach, and even then he was nearly skittled on the strategy. He still came back to, I think, a top 5 result in that one when it looked like the timing of the safety car had absolutely shot him, and there was maybe 20 cars on a better strategy. Still had a lot of pace in the back section there. So Scott Gamble has been sort of the real benchmark this season. That's what everyone's aiming for at Mugello circuit.
Yep, indeed. Well, the drivers are currently in qualifying for this 6th round of the championship, but when we get into the racing action, there'll be a few strategies possible here. There is no fuel tank restriction, as per usual, but there's a few different things the drivers will be able to employ throughout this race. Starting fuel, of course, is 50 litres, but you can fill it all the way up at the stop here. 2 compulsory pit stops, and the window opens around lap 2. The critical lap for the second stop is from laps 9 to 11, so you could see some drivers go for their second stop super early and run it all the way to 39 laps here. You have to complete 30 of those to be classified for points.
Yeah, and often if you have sort of early safety cars, etc., that's when you're going to see some drivers stop for their sort of try to clear their second stop early if possible, if they think there's a high chance of safety car. I don't think quite so much here at Mugello as at Long Beach, where a safety car seemed very, very likely. Here there's heaps more runoff, like you said, known for the motorbikes, and motorbike riders don't like to come off and then approach concrete too close to the racing line.
No, certainly not. This is a track where you can certainly push hard at, but it's still very much an old school circuit with gravel trap runoff at every single corner and grass lining the circuit pretty much everywhere else. If you want a visual identifier for how the strategy could go, well, the red line is the early stops, the yellow line is the late stops, blue is for even stints. So the drivers who are splitting this race evenly, which we expect is going to be the most common strategy, around laps 13 and 26 is when you're going to expect them to come in. But I think with this track being so high speed with so many high load corners, tire wear is going to be a massive factor. And I think an undercut of a couple of laps could really benefit you, even though the track is a bit cold right now. It's only 9 in the morning here. And, well, we have got 20 degrees Celsius on the virtual tarmac right now. That means there's going to be a lot of grip available to the drivers, but after 10 laps or so around this place, that pace is going to drop dramatically.
The discussion, though, always is about do you lose time in traffic if you pit early, or do you gain time with a little bit of the tyre undercut? We've got a close field because this is the top split of 4. It's really quick drivers up here. There's not a whole lot of field spread, and there's 35 plus of them. So that's always the thing to think about with stopping early. Sometimes it works for a really good undercut. Other times, though, it doesn't, because you end up coming out and in a place that is going to not allow you to use those new tyres because you're battling wheel to wheel with drivers who haven't stopped yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's the risk that you run, especially at a circuit like this where there's no real heavy braking zone overtaking opportunities aside from turn 1 and a couple of corners towards the end of the lap. Other than that, you are flowing through high-speed S's and sweepers all the way through this lap. Very hard to pass at Mugello from the racing that I have been in the box for various times over the last couple of years. And, well, with only a minute remaining in qualifying, the grid is just about set. But aside from that, I think we'll have to think about the pit delta as well, because it's a very long pit lane here at Mugello, and it's a very long start-finish straight. You are going to be losing a lot of time relative to the drivers around you when you pit.
Let me tell you where I would be stopping on pit lane. I think that's at pit entry there. Look at that vending machine down the bottom of shot. How detailed are those vending machines? Up in the paddock area, the motorhomes are all American ones. They don't look like European motorhomes. But down there, that vending machine, I bet you it's got the 500ml Cokes and Fantas that they have in Europe, not the 600ml ones that you and I are used to.
Yeah, indeed. Looking to get some nice European beverages down there. Well, European spec, rather. I love the detail around this place. This is one of the newer circuits to iRacing. It was only added a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of lovely graphical touches around this place, particularly the rendering of the terrain. It's just magnificent. You zoom out in blimp view of a driver, and you see just how much work has gone into the surroundings of this place. It really is spectacular. Well, 5-minute warm-up still yet to come, and we'll have a look at our zoom wall here. Man, we have got a really good turnout for this one. Plenty of drivers, David, to check in with over the course of the race.
I was about to say, where's Michael Stewart? And he connects just on time. Give us the tour, mate. Bring up Michael Stewart's camera. Come on, surely. Because behind him, he has the map of the circuits. Come on, show us where we're at, Michael.
Yes, come on, Michael.
We always are looking over his shoulder, going, where's this racetrack? And it's going to be with the other Italian ones. I see Monza.
Below Monza Oval. I see it.
Just above our head.
Yep. Just above his head.
Oh, he's reaching for the VR, not to point at it to show us. But yeah, there we go. Good to have everyone on the Zoom wall. They get one singular bonus point, I think, from showing up, but also gives a great view into the world of their racing. And then the other great insight that we get is Dino's dyno.
Yeah, indeed we do. Brilliant set of zoom walls here, particularly. Well, yeah, the Dino dyno. This is certainly something that I wish more drivers did. Having a heart monitor on board so we can see just how much stress they're being put through here on the virtual racetrack.
Just looking at it makes me want to take big, slow, deep breaths. But it's about to go racing shortly, and then of course all the other drivers we can look at their reaction and see, but hopefully not hear what choice words Jason Fewens occasionally has and the other drivers on the Zoom wall.
And a little recap as well before we go to the grid. Of course, thanks to Chubby Buns Burgers, we award a driver of the day every single round here in the V8 Veterans Championship. And, there's been some great drives over the course of this season, David.
Yeah, last round, John Gallen took it from America, if I'm not, I guess I haven't hit my head, forgotten. So he had a really good drive there. He is the Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day from last round. We've got 200 kilometers of Mugello tonight to look at the performance, see who might be tonight's Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day.
Yeah, tough run up through the field for John. He almost got into the top 20 after starting 35th. That is a great gain of positions in a championship as competitive as V8 Veterans. So big congratulations to John. He is hoping that he can pull off a similar performance here tonight. Make sure to check out Chubby Buns Burgers, sponsor of the Driver of the Day award here in the V8 Veterans Series. Well, just a couple of minutes to go and we can go through our grid here. No surprise to see that Scott Gamble has qualified on pole position, but Matt Vanderkraan with a fantastic performance in the Angry Birds Racing 180 is going to join him on the front row. Luke Grundle is going to start in third alongside the returning Sean McNamara. Lost third place in the championship, might be able to get a bit further back to that if he pulls off a result similar to that qualifying performance. Damien Cairns and Michael Stewart starting on our third row here. Still excellent performances from them. And then second in the championship, Kenneth Latta starting in seventh. That's a little bit further down than we would have expected him, starting alongside his Fishy Motorsports teammate Chris Miller in the 666. Rounding out the top 10, we have Jeff Thomas and Troy Stone Street. A very stacked top 10 here. And aside from Gamble, I don't know where anyone's going to finish.
Indeed, so stacked top 10. John Latham and Logan Barnett behind. Barnett's been pretty strong this season. Starts out at 12th, more than 7/10 away from pole. So qualifying has obviously been a challenge for the field based on these gaps. Chad Lewis 13th, Paul Warwick 14th. And then that next row with Mark Poynton and David Nash, 15th and 16th position. And then Michael Whiting and Travis Hunt back here at 17th and 18th. We also love to ride on board with Travis Hunt. Check out his perspective throughout these races on the Zoom. And Brad Doble and Craig Friend, 19th and 20th. Sometimes you almost have all 35 drivers within 1 second of pole, but Mugello must be a tough qualifying track.
Yeah, very long circuit, and it seems there's a lot of difference throughout the field. Rob Crisdale is going to start out at 21st alongside Christian Smart. Once again, Fishy Motorsports has a huge presence in this field, with Darren Crosby and Greg Sharp on the row behind the next of the WKMP SimSports Commodores. Then David Kirby, who we will expect to ride on board with at some point throughout this race. He's another one of the drivers on the Zoom wall, alongside Jason Fewens for Banter Alliance Racing. Dean Flavel is going to start in 27th place alongside Darren Goosey for Old Mate and Sons. And rounding out the top 30, we have Stuart Hall and John Gallen, our driver of the day from the previous round. Just a few more cars on the grid to go. Scott McCune starting 31st alongside Dan Hall, and then Gary Buckland and Brad Hinsby, last two drivers to set qualifying times. We also have Matty Parker and Michael Quain in the session, but neither of them set times in the qualifying session. They will start at the back of the field. The drivers filing onto that grid as we speak, and we get ready for what should be a scintillating run to turn one. It's quite long at this circuit.
Yeah, so that getaway can be a little hit and miss in these cars. You're always dropping the clutch and the revs somewhere to try to find good purchase without wheel spin, but then also without, bogging down at 1,000, 2,000 RPM far away from the power band of these cars up at 6,000 to 7,000 RPM. So it's tough to ride that line and try to find a good getaway somewhere in the middle of wheel spin or bog.
Yeah, difficult to get these cars off the line at the best of times. That's a reminder of the strategy information for this race. Every driver starting with 50 litres of fuel in the car. This is a fixed setup series, so the only things you can change on board the car are pretty much your brake bias and I believe anti-roll bars as well. Everyone else is driving the same settings as you otherwise. 3.7 to 3.9 litres a lap fuel burn, and 95 to 103 litres to add at the pit stop. It's quite a large amount of fuel. 2 compulsory pit stops you can fill all the way through there. I wonder if some drivers will be running long along and trying to get as much fuel as they can in to potentially shorten their second fuel stop. We'll find out at the end of lap 2 when the initial pit cycle comes around. Remember, laps 9 to 11, that's a critical lap for the second stop. If you've completed both of your stops by then, you'll be able to get home. But I wouldn't expect any driver is going to perform that kind of strategy today. Mugello, once again, a very high-speed circuit with plenty of heat generation in the tires in these fast corners. The pace is going to drop off massively, and I think you want to try and save those tires as much as you can. A long stint is going to be a killer in this 6th round of V8 Veterans for 2024 and Season 21. Let's go then as the revs rise and we get ready to go here. Scott Gamble on pole. Does he keep it? And he certainly does. We are away, but a very consistent start from everyone else around him. It looks like a little bit of more momentum for Luke Grundle there versus Matt Vanderkraan. He's going to go for second into the first turn. I saw a bit of a puff of smoke as well from Paul Warwick in the 050, that yellow car in the middle of everybody as they come into turn 1, 2, 3 wide. Very wide circuit here, but it narrows up as soon as you get into these S-bends to open up the lap. Who's going to push? Who's going to make contact? All up, not many. It's a nice, clean start from the front of the field.
You've said that right on cue. A couple of them would kick up a little bit of gravel, but no massive incidents. Great getaway from Grundle from 3rd to go up to 2nd place. Poor getaway from Logan Barnett, who dropped as much as 6 positions on the run towards turn 1. So he could be a driver that could contest for a podium, but he's qualified outside of the top 10, dropped a few positions initially on the race start, and now needs to get into this rhythm and flow.
Yeah, indeed. Currently, Logan Barnett, the driver that's lost the most positions. Actually, I correct myself. It's Brad Doble down in 26th. He's lost 7 spots. Most drivers, most positions gained. Meanwhile, this man here, Rob Crisdale in the Frog Leap Juiced Racing Mustang, up 6 spots here. He's got Logan Barnett and Chad Lewis battling behind him there. Oh, and it looks like just out of shot. A big problem for Darren Crosby and Greg Sharp there, both off in the gravel trap, coming up to one of the more difficult parts of the circuit.
So they managed to avoid too much contact early on in this race off of the race start. A couple of drivers at 3-4 wide, but then later on it comes home to roost as the drivers get a little bit more aggressive, and there's a few drivers who are not going to be entirely happy about how this lap 1 has gone. And no dramas for that race leader, Scott Gamble. He'll be happy with the first lap.
Oh yeah, certainly will. In the lead by over half a second as they cross the line to begin lap 2 of 39. There's a big problem for someone there out of the final corner. It looks like, yeah, Stuart Hall that's gone for a spin there. It looks like he might have just gotten on the power a bit too aggressively and spun all by himself. And he's got some damage for his troubles as immediately into the pits comes Greg Sharp with a very damaged number 747. Well, things are looking a bit calm for Gamble up the front, but it's definitely not the case behind. This is what happened here. So Darren Crosby, oh no. Okay, so Greg Sharp came in and gave him a hit, it seems, and there was nothing that Crosby could do about that. What happened here? I think he was just caught out by how early they were getting on the brakes.
And it gave him seconds to take away as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, he's completing a stop here, getting damage repaired, probably getting some new tyres on just in case. He's going to have to rely on a safety car to reverse his fortunes there. But, man, the Mates for Mates Commodore is looking lovely up at the front. Some side-by-side running further back. These guys have dropped off the back of the pack. Something chronic. Matty Parker in 30th place, and he's racing quite hard with Dan Hall there. Well, it's difficult to make a pass here and make it stick, but for the time being, it looks like Dan Hall might be trying to mount a comeback here. It's all about the corner exit, though. Mugello, usually a track where mid-corner speed is more paramount, but these cars have their own nature, and it's all about how you get out of those corners.
Yeah, different types as well. A couple of slow places where you're looking to pick up your throttle. And here, it's such a long final corner. And you're just like, can I get to the power? Can I get to the power to run down this long front straight where the speeds are going past 280 k's an hour? So, for example, there, as we look at Dan Hall, he punches past 280 before he hits the braking zone.
Very fast front straight here at Mugello. Battles going on ahead here, though. Good view of the battles for the podium positions here from Michael Stewart. And Michael making up a spot there, as it looks like that's Kenneth Latta with a slowdown, unfortunately. I don't know if there was a problem for him on the exit, but he definitely cut one of those corners. So that's another position up there for Stewart, back to where he started.
Yeah, he's running well in this race. Got a pretty nice looking insulated drinks bottle there in case he finds this tough going and hot work of 200 kilometers. Definitely got a decent bit of force feedback going on there as well as he punches down the gears and tries to bring the nose in here through, okay, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation on Correnteo.
Something like that.
Sant'Anato Biondetti, I'm confident with that. Arrabbiata, I think I'm confident with as well. That's the one corner. Oh no, two corners, maybe three corners I don't know how to pronounce.
Well, doesn't matter how you pronounce them, they're all fantastic turns here at Mugello. Beautiful flowing circuit, and it looks like Michael Stewart has a good handle on it here for the time being in that 919. He was getting the car rotated beautifully on the entry to those corners. Latta, having recovered from his slowdown, is in trouble of losing a further position here. John Latham, who's always a factor in and around the top 10 in this series. The Shadow Racing Commodore lining up the entry to this chicane very nicely. A little bit more tyre saving is possible with that narrow line out of turn 1. You can widen the entry. You don't have to waste effort trying to get back over to the right side of the circuit because you're already there.
Reminds me of Atwood curve at Okayama actually in a way, because you turn in and then it starts going uphill, and for weird reasons because of the elevation change, a tight exit can sometimes work way better than you'd think if the circuit was just completely flat. So the same thing's happening from turn 1 there, where keeping this tight line seems to then minimize the speed you lose against the elevation. It works very well.
Yeah, speaking of elevation, the Arrabbiata there, as you mentioned, that double right-hander up the hill, it just exited it, and you know, if you can really put the power down and hang the tail out across the crest. Looks like Latham was able to do that very nicely, not quite able to catch up to Latta when they come down to this massive 180-degree corner, probably the closest thing to a hairpin that we've got on this racetrack. But he is able to nail the line through this very fast chicane on the way down to the final corner. You can take a lot out of those curbs. I think in these cars in particular, though, it's not quite flat out. If not completely flat out, it is on the verge of being so. It's definitely flat out in pretty much every other car that races here, but these cars are a different beast.
Is that super long run towards turn 1. Look at us get all the way to the top of the gearing in 6th.
Yeah, massive speed that these guys produce down that straight here. And for the time being, it looks like Latham's not able to make any huge gains on Latta, but one mistake in this first sector of the racetrack can put you on course to gaining another position. Meanwhile, a bit further up, battle for 4th place. Damien Cairns trying to get past Matt Vanderkraan, who has lost 2 positions now off the start. Sean McNamara made his way past him as well. So Matty's going to have to try a bit harder here to get back up onto the podium positions. The Accelerate Sim Racing number 88, always a factor in the top 5 in this series, and he is extending that curb as much as he possibly can for the best run through Arrabbiata, but seems to be losing out a little to Vanderkraan coming across the top of the hill.
It's heating up wherever Damien Cairns is at, because it's guns out now as well. It's all guns blazing in the top 5 for him as well. Yeah, again, following that, Vanderkraan has just dropped a couple of spots in this opening stint.
Yeah, Damien is one of only a few drivers in the field that still occupy the same position they started, and it looks like that back end of the circuit hasn't treated him very well. Matt Vanderkraan has extended that gap out to probably 6 or 7 car lengths at least. So we'll have to wait for another opportunity. There's big racing going on further back here. This is just behind Latham. It looks like Stone Street, Warwick, and David Nash in the Phoenix liveried Commodore here. See if any over-under works on the exit of the final turn. You can run all the way out to the edging of those curbs. You still have 2 tyres on the curbs. It is legal. But you put all 4 tyres off onto that green painted concrete, you will get an off track. Wasn't quite able to translate it into a run, but pokes the nose out. At the very least tries to unsettle Paul Warwick on the way into the corner. And Stone Street is starting to look a bit vulnerable as well. Latham is driving away from them. He, once again, hasn't quite been able to keep up with Latta, but he does seem to have the edge over everyone else who's battling behind, and everyone's being compromised for the moment.
Feels like Road America had a little bit more slipstreaming going on than this. Everyone stayed very level down the front straight there. Not really any gains happening, even though Nash, for example, had a really good run off the final corner. He set up Paul Warwick into the final corner, got a better drive off, and then it just didn't seem to keep pulling down the straight. Like they were maybe kind of got towards the top of their gears in a not a DRS train, but a group like this.
Yeah, indeed. This is probably more reminiscent of the old Truly train. It's very difficult to make moves here. Not very many braking zones into slow corners. Pretty much every corner here is medium speed at least. So you need to really nail your exit and get the slipstream down the straight if you want any chance of making a move, or potentially move around in your rivals' mirrors, throw them off. Get them to sort of run wide on the exit or compromise the exit of a corner, and then you can try and run side by side with them. For now, though, David Nash catching up, and Paul Warwick and Troy Stone Street are looking ever more vulnerable as time goes on here. I get the feeling Nash is going to be looking for a move this time. He almost did it on the previous lap, but now he's in the slipstream of Warwick, and Paul's going to go defensive here. He has to. It's his only chance of defending the position, but you can overtake around the outside here. On the racing line, David Nash very late on the brakes, but Paul Warwick holding strong on the inside, pushes wide a little bit. They almost bang doors, and they bang wheels on the way out of the corner. David Nash can't get it done.
And all the way to the top of the gearing as well. If he had a little bit more, he could have kept slipstreaming, maybe had a little bit more advantage. Tried to outbrake, ended up going around the outside, which didn't work for a handful of reasons. We've seen how much grip there is on the inside there at turn 1 heading up the hill. He has to just stay behind, gives a little bit more space to the drivers in front. Stone Street built a couple more car lengths. So just a couple of car lengths off of John Latham as well.
Yeah, some crucial little things going on. It's all about the little things at Mugello. A tiny little wiggle from Damien Cairns across the top of the hill at Arrabbiata. Michael Stewart and Chris Miller right behind him. This battle for 5th is going off. Matt van der Kraan is now driving away from them. I think Cairns' issue was maybe he was overdriving the car a little bit in his pursuit of van der Kraan and a potential top 4. Now the car is starting to struggle, and the problem with Mugello is the corners just keep coming. The front straight is your only opportunity to cool your tyres down.
So look at these gaps across the last few laps. Michael Stewart starting to eat into Damien Cairns a little bit. Seems like all those other quick drivers behind, Chris Miller, Ken Latta, are also going to come along with as well. 5 opening up just a little bit, so Gamble opening up a little bit of a race lead. Matt van der Kraan getting away from Damien Cairns a little bit.
Defensive now versus Stewart. A little bit of a lock-up ahead. Someone had a problem there. I think it might have been Cairns. Not too sure. I've noticed that Cairns actually has a little bit of damage now. I can't quite pick where he got that.
Now, we saw Greg Sharp was off the road. He had that incident. He got a drive-through penalty as well, which I think he served. So I think this is him here about to go a lap down. So it's even a possibility that Greg Sharp was the source of the lock-up at 1.
Yeah, he was actually. I just went back and looked. Sharp locked up into turn 1 just as Sean McNamara was coming through. So, yeah, the race isn't going too well for Greg Sharp right now. One safety car, and it could potentially get him back onto the lead lap at least. But for now, all he can do is circulate and run his strategy out. He's going to lose a lot of time, though, as there's a long train of cars all looking to get by.
Yeah, so for the moment, Sharp holds a bit of position with the slipstream behind 4th place Matt van der Kraan, but eventually 5th, 6th, 7th get to him. You've got to really sort of get out of the way and almost park it up for a second.
Yeah, worth pointing out as well for Greg Sharp that he got a penalty from race control for his part in that incident. So he unfortunately had to tour through the pits again. Meanwhile, down in the midfield, Mark Poynton holding on to 14th spot. Logan Barnett looking to make a recovery. He's one of the drivers who's lost out quite a bit in this early part of the race, down 3 spots, and it looks like one of them coming into the pits behind, Michael Whiting. That's a very early pit stop indeed for the 025.
Yep, and what we saw out of the drive-through from Greg Sharp was that it's a 24-second drive-through here at Mugello, so some are a little quicker than that. Monster endurance pits certainly aren't, but it's sort of in the middle, nowhere near as quick as a Brands Hatch or some other Alton Park, where you get through pit lane in a flash.
Yeah, probably Manicourt you can throw in as well as a track that has a very short pit delta.
Silverstone's got a very short pit delta as well because you cut the final like 3 corners out.
True.
From pit entry. Nothing like that here because you feed into pit lane on the front straight and you feed back out.
Oh dear, we just heard some news for Michael Whiting. Unfortunately, it looks like he sped on pit lane. He's gotten a black flag. Now, if you don't know about iRacing pit speeding penalties, they are brutal. You speed on entry to pit lane, you have to hold in the pits for something approaching 42 seconds. So, poor Michael Whiting. He would have stood to gain quite a bit here. He would have been going for an undercut on both of his pit stops potentially, but it all goes wrong as soon as you get on the brakes for the pit lane. Just a little too late on the brakes, locking up on the way in. He was over the pit speed limit. Man, the pit entry speed cones come up a lot quicker than you expect at this place.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, where are the cones, and they do come up early, so even before the little kink into the pit lane, you've got to be down to 60 here at Mugello. So it's been super costly. He's another driver that's going to go a lap down to the outright leaders in this opening stint.
And here's a change for second. Sean McNamara getting up the inside of Luke Grundell. Gets up onto the runner-up position on the podium. Very nice move indeed.
McNamara made a car switch?
I'm used to seeing him in a Holden, but he's driving a Mustang.
I'm used to seeing him in a Commodore.
Yeah. Interesting to see there. Well, there's been a raft of pit stops here on this lap. Flavel, Lewis, Dan Hall, Travis Hunt, Christian Smart, and Darren Crosby have all made their way into the lane. Remember, Crosby was the car that was unfortunately turned by that mistake from Greg Sharp on lap 1. And he'll probably spend a bit more time in the pits getting those repairs done. The most time spent in the pits out of anyone on that cycle was Smart, though. Stopped for 30 seconds. That tells me that he's put quite a bit of fuel in that car, at least.
Yeah, it can be a good strategy to go gulp, gulp, gulp at the first pit stop if a safety car comes later. So, could be that you're sort of hoping for a safety car there in Christian Smart's perspective.
Yeah, all right. Christian Smart banking on a safety car there. I would say Chad Lewis is as well. Dean Flavel and Travis Hunt, 24 and 26 seconds respectively spent in the pit box there. And that is Greg Sharp letting by this pack of cars in the battle for 5th spot. Cairns still in danger of being rounded up by Stewart here, and that looked like a poor exit from the final turn. He's going to respond by going immediately into the lane, and he's followed in by Latta, who, man, it has to be said, made up a lot of time on the brakes there. I'm wondering if he sped on the way in.
Yeah, so you're at speed going straight into the pit lane, and then you got to slow up to 60. So it's a tough stop with the amount of speed you carry in. It's a tough stop with how early you need to slow down. I don't see any black flags waving out there.
Yeah, looks like Ken Latta has escaped the wrath of the iRacing automated stewards and joining him in the pits. going to be Darren Goosey, Jason Fewens, and Brad Doble. Doble, one of the cars that lost out quite a bit in the opening laps, so he's trying to make up time here with an early pit stop, potentially get some kind of undercut. On board with Jeff Thomas, meanwhile, chasing down Chris Miller for this position, currently 6th on track with the pits that have been completed so far. I think we're looking at effective 8th or thereabouts. Maybe 9th. John Latham just behind them was running in 10th, and you see the wheel work that Jeff Thomas is having to do here, and he's one of many drivers in this series who runs the sequential shifter. You're working very hard around Mugello in these cars. They snap at the drop of a hat, and through these fast corners they are truly lumbering beasts.
Got a bit of line locker action, I think, on the back side of that shifter as well, so maybe that helps with the race starts a little bit. He's got his hands full. He's got a good view of what's up from the guys in front, and we're going to see a couple more pit stops from drivers closer to the top 10, top 15. If they know about all the other pit stops going on, they know there's probably gap behind them to be able to stop now and not lose time in traffic, because a lot of the traffic has already also made their stops. Here we go, down to 60.
Yep. Pit stop on the zoom wall, and for now Thomas looks satisfied with his entry into the pits. I'm not seeing any black flags for him, so man, there's quite a few cars again making their way into the lane. There's a whole raft of cars that come in pretty much every single lap here. We're seeing a lot of differing strategies in these early stages.
And there was quite a bit of side-by-side, a bit of battling going on for a few of the drivers a bit further back. So I think I saw Paul Warwick and Troy Stonestreet side-by-side through turns 2, 3, maybe even through turn 4. So Stonestreet went, well, I'm losing time doing this. So he's come in and pitted. Paul Warwick's also come in and pitted. So a few of the cars behind them as well might have thought, gee, we're going to get undercut here if we're doing this. And so they've gone to make their stops and cover off some of the others as well.
And I'm sure you've noticed by now, Luke Grundle has gotten back past Sean McNamara for second. This is looking like an intense battle between these two, and it might have to be decided through the pit stops for McNamara. I think his only chance of really passing Grundle decisively and getting clear will be undercutting him. Will either of these guys make their way into the pits from here? Our leader, Scott Gamble, is in front by over 4 seconds, so he can afford to play around with his strategy a little bit more. I don't know if he's going to be one of the drivers that decides to go for this presumed early cycle on the first pit stop. I presume he will go. Oh, okay. He is going into the pits. Interesting to see. Then will he be followed in? He'll be followed in by Grundle at least. Looks like McNamara has locked himself into an overcut here potentially on the first pit stop.
That's what it's going to have to be. Matt Vanderkrant and Chris Miller carrying on, but a few others popping in. Logan Barnett now in as well. Mark Poynton in. Look at them. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll start to see some of their pit stop numbers. The variation in fuel time goes between about 20 seconds on the low side to about 33 seconds on the high side.
Oh, okay. It looks like a lockup for, I think that might be Stone Street. No, Greg Sharp. No, Greg Sharp in front, the lapped car there. And John Latham probably none too happy with how that went down. He was trying to get past Sharp, who, remember, would be getting blue flags here. He ended up locking up and a little bit of contact with Latham, and he was sent wide. I don't think the stewards are going to look too kindly on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier for Greg Sharp, that to be going that lap down that early, suddenly it's just wave after wave of cars that are going to be trying to lap you. You're not getting out of the way of just 1 or 2 drivers. You're having to try to clear out for the whole field, and it's such a tough ask to do without just parking it and going half a lap down further yet again.
Yeah, not ideal for either driver in that situation. Well, the pit stops have been completed for all but the top 5 running cars right now, and currently Kenneth Latta running 5th of the cars that have pitted. 10th place for him at the moment, and he's looking to be under quite a bit of pressure from Mark Poynton and Paul Warwick. Latta has already been out there for 2 laps, so his tyres will be up to temperature and potentially blazing. Meanwhile, Poynton here has only just come out of the pit lane. So his tyres are nice and fresh. Probably going to have to wait until about now for them to really be up to temperature, as McNamara, Van der Kraan, Miller, all on the lane at the moment, and it looks like Rob Crisdale's going to join them. I'd expect John Gallen to potentially make his way back in there as well. But for the time being, we'll have to wait and see who gets the quickest pit stop out of those guys in the lane right now. Gallen is going to join them. Everyone locked into their first pit stop by the time the 14th lap is completed.
And that's because of that 50 litres of starting fuel. We've reached about as far as that's gonna carry you. So everyone who's pitting now, run as long as they possibly can in this first stint. A couple of options what to do from here. You can go for quite a short middle stint if they want, because they're basically at that sort of get home if necessary kind of number. But then you've got a few that have looked to undercut them. Could be a tough slog if you take too much fuel at this first stop for those drivers.
Well, Matt Van der Kraan has had a successful stop. He's managed to get ahead of McNamara on that one. And it looks like McNamara losing quite a bit of time in that cycle there. 27 seconds stop and 52 seconds from entry to exit. So Van der Kraan probably feeling quite happy at the moment, but he will have to pay his dues later on at the second stop. Likely going to be a longer second stop for the 180.
I reckon Dino's dyno would be up pretty high right now. He's just copped a little bit of contact in turn 1 as Dean Flavel. I think it mostly got redressed, but it's a key overtaking opportunity turn 1. A few drivers are getting in there ambitiously on the brakes.
Yeah, very ambitious indeed. Flavel currently up 3 spots. His pit stop was 24.7 seconds, and hearing that he's called something into race control, yeah, have a look at that. Well, he is certainly on the limiter there, isn't he? Over 100 BPM, and certainly burning off the calories, presumably from a Chubby Buns burger. And I've just seen the reason why. Looks like the 727 of Chad Lewis made a bit of an optimistic move at turn 1 and almost tapped Dean around. Dean immediately got on the brakes and was actually straightened out by Chad Lewis. You're about to see it here on the RaceKraft Simulations replay. Out pokes the nose for the blue Commodore, and Flavel gets a tap when he turns in for the corner, gets straightened out just in time for the next couple of cars to come through, and they end up getting almost pincer moved by those two Commodores around the outside and inside.
Yeah, so Lewis is a long way back here. So even with that, they lose about 3 spots each. Maybe 4 for Lewis if Jason Fewens would have a little bit of a look. Taking a couple of deep breaths about it, and it's dropped down a little bit. But at 1,150 calories, I reckon he could get himself a double-decker from Chubby Buns with 2 premium Wagyu beef patties, 2 slices of American cheese maker. Yes, that stuff.
Yep. All good words to hear when you're talking about a burger. Jason Fewens now, the next car to come up here on Chad Lewis, who will have some damage to his front end as a result of that earlier contact. In the meantime, seen Matt Van der Kraan get onto the podium places. Jeff Thomas losing a couple of spots on the previous lap. So he's going to be having some issues from there. Let's see what Fewens will be able to do here as he makes his way towards Arrabbiata. You know, this is such a scintillating corner, this. You want to try and hit both of these apexes and carry as much speed as you can, but it's all about the run between them. You get on the brakes a little bit, get the weight back onto the fronts, draw out across the curb as far as you can. He's looking, but he's not far up enough to get the move done.
We've learned Chad Lewis is one of the last of the late breakers down in towards turn number 1. So I'm not sure that's where Fewens is going to be able to get him. But if Lewis is a bit wide of a few of these apexes as he's been, maybe there's a chance.
Yeah, let's see what he can do. Whether or not that damage is going to help or hinder him. Side by side, meanwhile, for 5th, Michael Stewart trying to get past Jeff Thomas at turn 1. And he's going to have turn it into a run at turn 2, potentially. Thomas will try and keep the inside line going, get on the power, get ahead of Stewart, but has to give him room on the exit there. Some would argue maybe he gave a bit too much room there because it allowed Stewart to stay alongside. Man, neither of these guys wanting to give an inch here. But I think Michael Stewart's going to complete the move. The next corner, very fast right-hander. Does have to stay a little bit wide, but he is through by the time they get to the left. Having said all of that, they've lost bulk time to Sean McNamara up ahead. You don't want to be running side by side for too long around here.
Yeah, and as this goes on, McNamara just keeps baking in that advantage, having taken on a whole bunch of fuel, having run really long in the first stint as well. So flexible strategy options from McNamara, who could pretty shortly, just pop in and top it off if he wanted to and be good to go to the end, and then a late safety car would really help him out. Then he can also run this really deep through the middle stint if he wants, almost guarantee that McNamara, if he wanted to, could be the last driver to make their final stop.
Yeah, a lot of permutations possible here. You see that Dean Flavel is in the pit lane and has been for some time. Well, he came in presumably to repair the damage sustained from that contact with Chad Lewis, but he sped on the way into pit lane. And so he's been in there for quite some time. Finally, he gets going with 1 minute and 4 seconds spent in the box. He will fall a lap down, and he's just come out behind this battle we're right on board with. Van der Kraan still trying to keep McNamara behind him. That 951 is looking racy, despite presumably being one of the heavier cars out there.
The other side of that, though, is he's got some of the fresher tyres. So it goes to show which is most important.
Oh, wow, okay. Suddenly it's all exploded here in the midfield. Looking like Kenneth Latta up ahead of this pack. Chris Dale versus Miller at the front, and side by side here for Logan Barnett. He's, I think, the driver who's been compromised on this particular lap. He was running in 12th, and, well, he's still in 12th now, so fortunately hasn't lost all that much, but, man, that was sardines in a can through the opening couple of turns.
Yes, indeed. So Barnett was as far back as, I think, 18th place or something at one point in this race, so he's got a chance to move forward some. This is how it all kicks off.
Yeah, it was a move by Chris Miller on Paul Warwick, and looked like a bit of a dive there. Locked up, got into his teammate. Chris Dale scythes on through, and Barnett thinks, okay, I can take advantage of this, but he's compromised. He's offline. He's not able to take all the advantage that he wants.
Like, I would swear that McNamara was in a Commodore last round. I would swear that Chris Miller was in a Mustang. So
yeah.
They've done a swapperoo, like a Red Bull V-Carb mid-season situation.
Indeed they have. Have a look at this. The Frog Leap Juice Racing Mustang of Chris Miller looks to be passed here by Chris Miller on the way into turn 1. He's through by the time they get to the braking zone. I think Chris Dale might have blended out of the throttle there. Probably a wise decision, considering he is... he's probably working more towards the end of the race at the moment. Chris Dale, one of the cars that had the quicker pit stop in that earlier phase, only 18.7 seconds stopped in the box for Chris Dale. He's going to have a longer second stop, but it's granted him a ton of positions. He is up 11, and that's only the second most positions gained in the field that he shares with Scott McCune. Currently, Matty Parker up 16 places in the 199, the car with the most spots gained. Actually, 3 of those positions are the race control cars. Matty Parker, remember, was one of the cars who didn't take part in qualifying.
So then, yeah, in the bottom right, you've got the graphic there. Matty Parker 13, Chris Dale 11, McCune 11, Gary Buckland 10, Mark Poynton 8. So it puts Chris Dale into the top 10 for the moment, though still got to really keep working once that second round of pit stops comes by.
Yeah, plenty more work to do. Mark Poynton, meanwhile, He's got his teammate some distance behind him. Not much help here for the number 29, who's a little bit wide on the way into the final corner. Wasn't quite able to nail the apex. Kenneth Latta will have gained a couple of tenths from that one. Remember, Latta looking to gain a bit more here. He's one of the drivers who had a longer pit stop in the first cycle. So look for him to potentially leap ahead of Poynton at the next stop, or leap ahead of him now as Poynton locks up into turn 1 and slithers through the gravel trap. He's going to lose 1, potentially 2 more positions here alongside Paul Warwick. Chris Dale once again benefited a free position at turn 1 thanks to someone else's mistake.
And then it triggers this. How many times have we seen that yellow Mustang, Paul Warwick, battling with someone, particularly here through turns 2 and 3. He's been right in the thick of where the action is, fringes of the top 10, and then just a teeny bit behind at points as well. So he gains a spot from that too.
Yeah, Paul Warwick now up 4 positions from his starting spot, and Poynton's going to have to make some kind of recovery here. It's another thing about Mugello, when you do make a mistake, it can balloon into a massive time loss. Travis Hunt, meanwhile, up 3 spots versus Damien Cairns, who's down 11. Damien spending a long time in the pit lane and losing a bit of time out on track as well. He's been in the wars here, but both Travis and Damien will be fighting hard over 15th position for the time being.
Who looks like they're working harder.
That is the big question. I suppose the more cinematic angle is the one that Cairns has. So, you know, in terms of the framing, in terms of the intensity, looks a little bit more intense for Damien, but both of them looking fairly relaxed on the straight.
Yeah, like arching the back a little bit, stretching out. Got a long run once you're up into 6th gear. And the rest of the lap comes at you quick and fast.
Yeah, really, the start-finish straight is your only opportunity for a rest around Mugello. All the way through, you are battling your car as much as the track, trying to keep the weight on the fronts, trying to keep the rear end rotating without snapping. I think you do need a pointy car around here. There's not much space between the corners, so you do need a car that's really responsive on the front end. And of course, all drivers running the exact same setup for this one, aside from adjustments to anti-roll bars and brake bias. So I think by this point of the race, they might want to start winding their brake bias back a little bit, or maybe go a little bit firmer on the rear to try and get that rotation as the track rubbers up.
Yeah, there's many cars pounding around, new sets of tyres going on. You are going to rubber in the track, and then the alternative is you're also going to marble up the bits that are offline, and many a talented Italian has worked with marbles before.
Well, they certainly have.
Have you seen the statue of David?
Yep, indeed.
Not to scale.
No, not quite. Particularly below the belt, if there was one.
He's not wearing a belt. He's the one I've seen.
Oh, well, a little bit of a deep breath from Travis Hunt, it seems, as he completes another lap successfully, but he has lost time to Cairns on this one. Damien in the slipstream, coming down the front straight, but backs out of it. He doesn't want to pass Travis Hunt just yet, but Hunt's still running the defensive line on the way in. Interested to see what Cairns will do here. There was only a couple of seconds difference between their pit stops, so I presume they're both running similar strategies. But yeah, I think for Damien, potentially he's just waiting for the next pit stop to make the move, or he could be trying to go for it right now. Nonetheless, difficult to make a move into these fast S-bends, so he'll have to stay behind for a couple more corners to come. For now, it does look like Travis Hunt is at a disadvantage.
Damien Cairns, of course, one of 3 drivers named after regions of Queensland, and the best performing of himself, Barnett and Warwick.
Yes, indeed.
There's probably a stone street somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Practically guaranteed. Sure there's a few of them here in Perth. Well, Christian Smart, 18th place at the moment, got Darren Crosby behind him, and Christian has some of the best views in the house here, running a triple screen setup like myself and many of the other drivers in this championship, but he doesn't run the virtual mirror with the mirrors switched off. He still has to look into his wing mirrors to see what's going on behind him, and occasionally Dan Yeaman saying that he does run the virtual mirror, and he does, but there is the option to have the virtual mirror with your real mirrors blacked out. It looks to me like he's running the virtual mirror as a sort of rear view and still has the wing mirrors active. So we'll occasionally see a flash of yellow in there, as it looks like we have more pit stops starting here. Damien Cairns, well, we saw him back out at the start of the previous lap. I think that's because he was preparing to come into the lane for his second stop, and Robert Crisdale is in there with him.
Yeah, you talked about how quick Crisdale's first stop was. This will probably be a bit of a longer drink of fuel at stop number 2, and of course it had to come earlier with that shorter, earlier stop. You sort of reach the point, fill it up and get going here. So 27 seconds for Crisdale, 16 for Cairns.
Yeah, that's a very quick second stop there for Damien Cairns. And Crisdale will come out in 30th. I was about to say 29th, but Dan Hall just zipped by him on the exit. So those are the first takers on the second pit cycle. Now it's up to everyone else to try and follow them in. Question is when.
Been looking through some of those pit stop numbers again, because you get so much variation from the first stop to the second stop, but the adding the stop time from the first to the stop time for the second ought to be equal predominantly across the field. And we do have live timing if you want to click it and keep up maybe with your teammates, your favorite drivers.
Yeah, indeed. Live timing thanks to Grip. Big thanks to them for providing a fantastic service. Just noticed Brad Hinsby's been removed from the server, and I don't know if that's he was in the wrong split. That's not ideal there for Brad Hinsby.
Unfortunately, it happens from time to time. We got 4 splits, but I think it's pretty easy to tell them apart. Normally the way they set them up is split 1 starts at 6:31 p.m, split 2 starts at 6:32 p.m, split 3 starts at 6:33 p.m. Very easy. Well, that's in my time zone, maybe not drivers of everyone, but you can look at them and go, oh, I'm split 3. It's the one that ends in 3.
Yeah, indeed. Proper stroke of genius there, as Dan Yeaman says behind the scenes. Well, unfortunate for Brad Hinsby. He gave it a go. He was out there on track, lapping around, but, well, if you're in the wrong split, you're in the wrong split, and so he will take no points from this round. We are not at 75% race distance, and even if he was in the right split, still not far enough in. Brad Doble, meanwhile, trying to find his way past the 17th place car of Matty Parker. Parker still with the most positions gained in the field. He's up 17 now. That's a magnificent run from the back for Matty Parker. A little bit of a push through Arrabbiata gives Brad Doble a little bit of a comeback here. But for the time being, looks like Parker's perfectly happy, minding his own business in this battle, trying to catch up to Scott McCune, but not quite enough curb usage there on the right-hander, and Brad will stand a potential position here.
We have closed up a little bit across the last couple of corners, haven't we? And then a little bit of a lock-up, another car further in front. How many drivers finding front lock-ups here and there around this circuit today?
Yeah, a lot of these corners require trail braking on the way in, and they're so gentle and so sweeping that it's very easy to unload the inside tyre. That's why we're seeing so many lockups at various corners here. Despite the lockup ahead, it looks like a good exit for Parker as Doble decides it's time to come in for his second stop. Now, it vanished off of my timing screen just now, so I cannot tell you how long Doble's first stop was. But we'll see how long this one is and extrapolate from there. David Nash also just completed his second stop, 20.4 seconds. So see how that works out for him as we're waiting on the majority of the field to take that second stop. Doble's first stop was a long one, only spending 15.9 seconds in the pits on this stop. Good stuff from Brad.
The cumulative is about 40 seconds, so the 25-second first stop becomes a 15-second second stop. And some of these other drivers that ran really long in the first stint and then took 25 seconds, 27 seconds of fuel, well, maybe they'll only need a 15, 13, 12-second stop at the very, very final one. That's a rough approximation.
Yeah, expect those numbers when they come in. Warwick, Latham and Barnett fighting over 9th for the time being. We haven't seen anyone in the top 10 come in for their second stop just yet. A little bit narrow coming into the final corner there for Paul Warwick. See if he translates that into a run of the pits. He does, and he's followed in by John Latham. Barnett's going to carry on an extra lap.
And Kansas got a slowdown penalty, so where's he picked that up? It's going to potentially cost him. Here's Nash around the outside of him. Cairns, of course, one of the very, very first drivers to take the second pit stop.
Yeah, it's not going ideally for him. I'm trying to look for where he would have gotten the slowdown.
Must be middle sector somewhere.
I think I've just found it. Maybe no, wouldn't have been the right-hander before Arrabbiata because he still had two wheels on the curb. Well, that's either way not ideal for Damien Cairns. It's a very inopportune time to pick up a slowdown. Someone who's having a very quiet night tonight, David Kirby, currently running in 16th spot, but it's a quiet but profitable night so far. Up 9 spots from where he started, and David's one of the drivers who spent the longest in the pit lane on the first stop. I reckon this is going to be only a little splash that he's going to have to take at his second tour through the lane, and a set of fresh tyres besides. Look for Kirby to potentially make some moves in the final stint.
Yeah, he's got a bit of clean air, a bit of real estate to work with here as well. So based on that long first stop, he could run and just keep trying to run in the clean air here if he thinks he's got enough pace and he's got consistency. But of course, we are if he felt the need to come in, put a little bit more fuel in, put new tyres on, and there's your run to the end as well. All of them make it look like a bit of hard work around here.
Yeah, trust me, I haven't driven a V8 around Mugello, but I can tell you in any car it is hard work, whether or not it's a low downforce machine like this, where you have to rely on mechanical grip through the corners, or a high downforce sports car where you're trying to push as hard as you can to get that extra grip through the corners. Mugello is a tough ride, but it's certainly entertaining.
Had to slow down for a second there as well. Where are they getting these? Something to keep an eye on. You mentioned how flat the curbs can be around here, and therefore how that can sometimes entice you into making track limits mistakes.
Yeah, I think the most likely places to get... Whoa, easy. Oh. Okie dokes, Mr. 307, David Kirby. It's usually at these corners where you see drivers get slowdowns. You can run all the way out to the exit there, but you get on the brakes here. It's very easy to cut across the curbs here, especially if you get some understeer in the preceding corner. So if drivers are getting slowdowns, it's probably there or here. The kink on the way up to Arrabbiata. You can take a lot of curb there, but very narrow margin.
Casanova there as you drop down through the right-hander, so it could be there. Definitely could be there. It looks so inviting with the painted concrete on the inside and the track dropping away. You've got potentially, from the driver's perspective, an interesting visual perspective of the racetrack dropping away, and maybe you can't place your car exactly how you'd want because of the visibility.
Yeah, these cars are pretty good as far as visibility goes, but still got to try and feel your way around a lot of racetracks in such a difficult to drive machine. Scott Gamble holding on to what is now a 7-second lead as Luke Grundle has taken his second stop along with Van der Kraan, Stewart, Latta and Miller. Another raft of drivers finding their way to their second pit stop with presumably 13 laps remaining on the ticker here. Now, of the drivers that just came in, looks like Van der Kraan again with a quick pit stop, 19.7 seconds, looking like pretty even pit stop times there for Matt. Grundle with 24.9 seconds at that stop. Now, that tells me he's probably going to lose out to McNamara potentially, because McNamara with 27 seconds stopped on the previous cycle. His pit stop is definitely going to be shorter.
Yeah, so for McNamara, the thing is he's got to have a really good final stop here, but also because he took just those couple of extra seconds of fuel the first time around, instead of coming out in second or third or fourth, came out in sixth, had a little bit of traffic, maybe could have run quicker in clean air in the first stint, but it sort of hedges your bets a little bit if there's going to be a safety car or anything that brings the field together and you've got a little bit more fuel in your back pocket. Race leader Scott Gamble comes in.
Yeah, and 100% clear on the way in terms of speeding. Sean McNamara is going to join him in there as well, so keep an eye on where Luke Grundle is. He's currently in third and making his way up to the final corners now. McNamara jumping into his box. Gamble should have his stop completed in just a few seconds' time. It's probably the closest anyone's going to be to Scott Gamble towards the end of the race. And out he goes with a solid 20-second stop. 18 seconds for Sean McNamara, and that is more than enough for him to get out ahead of Grundle.
Anything close to Gamble is Doble or nothing.
There we go. I was waiting for that. Looks like John Gallen as well, making his way into the lane. Driver of the day last round, and certainly putting a case in for potentially 2 in a row. He's made up a good amount of places over the course of this race, but with that, we only have one driver left to take a second stop, which he just has, Dan Hall, the last driver to get the requisite 2 mandatory pit stops out of the way. The field is cleansed, and now we have the scene set for the end of the race.
Oh, if you didn't say it, I was going to ask you what the field is now that everyone is pitted, but we've covered that off. No, we're not going to let that one slide, Reese Gardner. So everyone indeed with their second stop. So positions gained for John Gallen, like you said, and his teammates. They always get around him. They're always active in the chat. Always something to say to cheer him on.
Yeah. Been a good run for him so far. We're keeping an eye here on Latham. Found himself in 9th after his second stop. David Nash pitted a lap earlier than him. Damien Cairns with the oldest tyres of the bunch. Goodness me, very close to an error.
Yeah, and obviously had one earlier on wherever it was that Damien Cairns picked up that slowdown penalty. So he could have been a tiny bit further up the field inside of the top 10 if not for that. Track limits through there across the chicane. I don't think they're as tightly policed at Beyond Detsy as they are at some other places, because everyone knows it's basically flat out. Not really gaining that much time from cutting it a tiny bit compared to some of the tighter corners where, cut the car width and you carry so much more speed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was going to say that I believe if you cut the course there, you do get an off track, but you don't get a slowdown. Scott McCune, another driver who's made up a good amount of positions tonight. The 77 currently sits in 23rd, 8 spots up with Matty Parker, 13 spots up just behind him. Now, McCune pitted a lap later. He does have that slight advantage. but it is only very slight in these cars. Darren Goosey, it looks like, is also trying to make some moves here, catching up and taking a 10th out of both of these guys on the previous lap.
He drives like dudes with Nissan Pulsars with a sound system drive. It's always one hand on the wheel, the other hand resting on the window. Well, in this case on the shifter, but there you go. No wonder he had to shake out his wrist a little bit, tiny bit of cramp down the front straight. It's all about like a tune. Apparently he's gone back to two hands on the wheel now, but yeah, turn one, and the final corner. Right hand steering, left hand shifting.
Yeah, indeed, but this part of the circuit demands your full attention. You're not really doing much shifting in between the corners around the Arrabbiata area. McNamara getting the fastest lap of the race, only by 4 thousandths of a second over Gamble's fastest lap, but that's certainly worth something there. McNamara really getting the pace on here in the final 10 laps.
Yeah, track temp hasn't moved much, and so a few of those drivers have run late. They've put in just a little bit of fuel. They're running relatively light cars. They've got a bit of clean air in the top 5. They've got new tyres on, so now is the time. And just rub it in the track a tiny bit to set these fastest laps of the race. If you start, with traffic and 50 litres of fuel in the car, and then if you run along the middle stint into a short final stint, you can bang in a couple of quick laps around this phase.
Yeah, look for that pace to drop off a little bit by the end of the race, though. I'm pretty much right in the ballpark for that pace to be dropping off at that time. Man, I'm seeing Goosey here really rounding up the back of Matty Parker here. Was almost could almost reach out and touch the back end of his fellow Commodore on his way through turn 1, but not quite close enough for a move, and he's probably going to have to just follow him around on this lap once again as McCune drives away from them.
Yeah, Parker was that sort of car width or so inside in the braking zone into turn 1 as well, just trying to cover it off, so already beginning to drive a little bit defensively, keeps the other driver behind, but it does keep them close. So then you've got to keep fending them off once you've made that move to begin to defend into turn 1.
The battle for 19th, meanwhile, Stone Street, Doble, Fewens and Lewis.
Lewis would slow down, so what did he just do?
Oh dear. Well, having a great time. Chad Lewis, of course, already with a bit of a problem earlier on, that contact in turn 1 that we caught. And he's still carrying some of the damage from that. So this car's not driving exactly to his liking. Lock up ahead of him, but doesn't seem to have hurt Jason Fewens and or Brad Doble all that much. I couldn't tell quite who made that mistake. A lot of time lost there for Chad Lewis on that lap. Fewens here, the only driver in this pack to have gained on the start. Troy Stonestreet not having the most fantastic of nights, down 9 positions. He should be fighting up in and around the top 10, but he's faced various problems over the course of this night of racing. And for the time being, it looks like Doble might be the fastest of these 3. So the last lap times for these guys, there's not much of a difference between them, but you can see that Doble, by about 8 to 9 800ths of a second or so faster than Jason Fewens, and starting to round up Stone Street here, getting right on the back of him through Arrabbiata, just trailing the brakes a little to get that tiny bit of rotation across the top of the hill. Little difference of lines as well through the chicane. This circuit is so intense. It's one of those tracks where you have to nail every turn in, every apex, every exit to get a fast lap around here. It's not a track where you can compromise a couple of corners to get a better run through others. You have to be on your A game the whole way around.
science fiction shows where they go like warp speed or hyperspeed or something through space, and there's just stars and streaks of light just coming at him, zipping past, and it doesn't stop. So what some of the corners I think feel like here, they come up at you quick, and then once you're through one corner, the next one's straight up in your face, and then the next one, and then the next one, and you are trying to keep, Mach 20 or whatever going on, but it's a never-ending sequence of you're moving the car across one side of the racetrack to the other, one curb to the other, you're trailing the brake out, trailing the throttle in, steering goes from left to right, all the way, I think from sort of about here, and just on and on and on, 4, 5, 6 corners.
Yeah, I think it's one of the tracks that best demonstrates one of the big aspects of performance driving, setting up corners, a few turns in advance. You want to try and get the best run you can through every single corner, but sometimes you have to compromise one a little bit to open up the entry to the next. But you still have to be perfect and on your marks, because if you make a mistake, then all of that momentum is going to be lost. It really is a momentum circuit, Mugello, especially in these machines. Travis Hunt, in his pursuit of Logan Barnett to try and get into lucky 13th position, will be trying to set up here at the final corner. It's always difficult to pick the line through here. Sometimes the fastest line through is not necessarily the geometrically quickest, but for now, it looks like a bit more confidence in the exit from Logan Barnett. He and Travis Hunt both pitting on the same lap. They've just completed 7 laps on this set of tyres, so we'll get a good read here as to who has taken the best care of them.
Good to have this graphic as well. 7,400 RPM in 6th gear. There is not much left to wring out of that.
Yeah, of course, there's a hard cut to the rev limit in these cars. Whoa, both of them making a slight error, and did I see a little grimace there from Travis Hunt? Good Lord, it's not ideal spinning up the wheels on the exit of one of these corners, but you have to induce a little bit of oversteer, I think, just to get out of the corners in these cars. They're so dependent on weight transfer. It's not like the typical circuits these cars are good at, where there's sharp corners, you're slowing right down, you're squaring off the corner, and you're launching your way out. You can't do that around here.
I love, but I hate when that thing happens. The driver in front makes a little bit of a mistake, and it tricks you into making the same mistake. And Travis Hunt nearly had a great opportunity to get close and put some pressure on. He saw the other car wide, he got a little eager, and then he lit it up a little bit, ended up a tiny bit offline. He has, on trend, been a couple tenths of a second quicker, so he'll still get close with a chance, perhaps into turn 1. He'll use all 7,500 RPM of 6th gear.
Oh, I'm sure he will. But remember last lap, Barnett got a slightly better exit out of the final corner. Hunt couldn't catch up to him. On the last couple of laps, he's been taking out a couple of tenths, though, so we'll see what he can do this time around. I don't know if there's much catching Paul Warwick at this stage, with only 6 laps to go for these guys across the line. Not quite close enough for the outbraking maneuver into turn 1, and that's interesting there. Sector 3, Hunt was a little bit off and lost a little more time to Barnett.
This is where the excitement was a lap ago, but it's a little tidier from both this time. Travis Hunt still close though. And then it's 2 corners from here, so the next right-hander. We've been seeing drivers get slowdowns, cutting too much out of this right-hander descending down the hill. It's super tempting. Look at how much of it Hunt goes and gets. If he was 5 centimeters further to the right, then I reckon that's where the slowdowns are kind of coming from. That's where the track limits pressure mainly is around here.
Yeah, look at the entry through Arrabbiata 2 as well. And he's managed to hold on to that momentum. We'll have to get on the brakes a little bit earlier for the S. But does he have it in him to stabilize the car on the exit? Not quite. sort of caught the speed bump a little bit on the inside, and you have to do that to get the best line through some of these corners, but it can compromise your exit. It can send you on a bit of a straighter trajectory to the exit than you'd otherwise like.
And I'm seeing what you're seeing at this final corner, that a tighter exit is really working pretty well for Barnett. So here he is, coming in a little bit wider, staying tucked a little tighter there as he gets to power. And the way the track drops away, I don't know, it feels like there's a little bit of camber to staying with the inside.
Yeah, there definitely is. I can tell you that from the driver's perspective. You know, it's very tempting to run super wide out of that corner. You think that might be the best way to get the speed, but no, sometimes running a little tighter, taking advantage of that camber, straightening out the car a little bit earlier is the ideal way through the final turn at Mugello. Things are starting to get a little leery between John Latham and Damien Cairns here behind David Nash, and they've got that pack just behind them as well. Looking at the lap times, actually looks like Warwick, Barnett and Hunt, they are all catching this trio. They all ran faster on the previous lap, aside from Cairns, of course. Cairns is one of the big gainers here in terms of time. He's now down 6 positions from where he started. When we last checked in on him, he was down 8. But Nash, Latham and Cairns have been going for 11, 10 and 13 laps respectively. Meanwhile, Barnett and Hunt, they are on the 10th lap on this set of tyres. So whatever advantage they may have, it might only be slight, but it's just enough for them to be gaining a bit more.
I was going to say, what Damien Cairns doesn't need is a fight to break out that costs him that 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds back to a couple of cars on some slightly quicker tyres in behind. Hunt's got ahead of Barnett. Barnett's dropped behind.
Yeah.
He's got to slow down. But what happened for Barnett?
Yeah, not ideal for Logan Barnett, and it looks like Travis Hunt managing to grab the position here. What happened between these two? So, Hunt, I think, saw the opportunity for a move, and he tried out braking him. Barnett, looks like just let him go. Still clearing a slowdown, potentially. Not too sure what went on there. Oh, he was massively compromised there. Looks like we might have to go back even further to see the potential slowdown if there was one, unless he's just way offline and has decided to give up the fight.
Yeah, he had a big wide moment, a big lock-up heading down the hill, and then Hunt's immediately on the pressure, and Barnett, I think, maybe just recognises the mistake that he's just made in the previous sequence of corners.
Yeah, well, Logan, I think, will just have to circulate to the end from here. Meanwhile, Brad Doble versus Troy Stonestreet for 19th spot. And there's a big difference between these guys on tyre life. Stonestreet's been out there for 23 laps on that set of tyres. Stonestreet was one of the first drivers to take that second stop. Doble, part of the, I think, maybe second to third last group of cars that took their second stop, so massive tyre advantage there. Their pit stop laps are next to their names. Stonestreet got both of his pit stops out of the way very early on. Ultimately, this is what you're seeing, the debt that must be paid. You know, you can take that second pit stop early and get the undercut, but you have to make sure that your tyres have the life in them to get to the end, because right now, Stonestreet is not looking pacey.
Will be pretty tough. I've got some good stuff with my pit stop timing for him, where it says he's actually only changed tyres once.
Huh.
But it says he's been through the lane twice, so yeah, something's not right on that. But did you know Chubby Buns Burgers have a thick shake named after you?
Do they now?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm reading this wrong. That's Reese's Peanut Butter Cup flavoured thick shake.
Ah, yes. And of course, it's not the same spelling, so it doesn't count.
Shame.
Don't worry, I every time I grab a coffee and they ask my name, they never spell it right.
It's funny because I thought your spelling was the most common one.
Yeah, I thought so too, but
I've heard
apparently
that
not.
they'll always mess up your name if they're writing it on a coffee cup, because then like it's a psychological thing.
Maybe they'll get it right next time I get a coffee from them, which guarantees you'll come back.
Yeah, or it like makes them memorable. Or so 3 play here for poor McCune. I need
Ouch.
both hands on the wheel for that kind of stuff.
You certainly do. And
I don't
that's
think we can replay the Zoom though. That can only be fed live.
yeah. Oh, McCune making that mistake at one of the worst spots to make that kind of mistake. The final turn coming onto the start-finish straight. You lose bulk time as a result. Well, Fishy versus Fishy for P7. Miller versus Latta. We'll see if Latta will finally be able to get into the position he started in, and he will. Chris Miller giving him the position on the way into turn 1.
Yeah, very, very easily indeed. So they swap with the teammates. I wonder if there's not a big chunk of front saving happening back there for Miller, because look at how much further he's gone and dropped behind as well after that. A couple of tenths of a second missing. Was the fuel drop just a little short from Miller? And can the tyres hang on for Damien Cairns here? This is my Queensland place names battle in full effect.
Certainly is. Cairns versus Warwick, a battle for the ages. Who will win? Vote in the comments. Oh dear. John Gallen and Gary Buckland. That was close to disaster there. Gallen making the move on Buckland at turn 1. Can Gary hold on around the outside? Not quite. A little bit wider on the way in. He'll try and stick the nose in at turn 2, but I think Gallen's more than completed that move by now. But, man, at those high speeds, getting a little tap on the rear as the guy moves over on you. Oh, easy does it. Man. Certainly not ideal. Still battles going on for the last position in the top 30 as well. Stewie Hall holding on here. Michael Whiting, who, remember, was one of the worst affected cars in the early stages thanks to that speeding in pit lane penalty. He's just been trying to circulate at the back pretty much the whole time. Incredibly short second stop, 9.6 seconds. So all he can really do is try and grab 30th spot, and that will be that. The final lap has begun. Warwick and Cairns alongside each other into the first corner. And oh, Cairns almost steered into him there. Understeered into him, I should say. Tighter line on the exit. He's struggling for traction, is Damien Cairns. And Paul Warwick will manage to grab the position. 3-lap fresher tyres helping him to get that done.
Look at the last lap time from Chris Miller up in 8th place. He's dropping hard, so Nash, Latham, they could catch him here because he is lifting and coasting and soft pedaling. 3 seconds lost on the last lap compared to those behind. More than 2 seconds lost compared to his teammate that he let through. So he's really in trouble here, is Chris Miller.
Yeah, certainly is. Wasn't really letting Ladder go per se, just potentially under-fueling it. So we'll see if there's any change for 8th spot. There has been no change for the lead ever since the race started, pretty much. Scott Gamble, the man to beat in this series, once again wiping the floor with the competition here in virtual Italy. Yet another win on the board for the 9.5 SimSport 543. And he looks pretty relieved that that one's over. It looked like a very tough race no matter where you were. Great drive to second for Sean McNamara on his return to the series after a round out. Luke Grundle getting onto the podium. Another solid drive there. He was fighting hard with McNamara all the way to the end. Michael Stewart going to grab 5th spot. And Jeff Thomas in 6th. Great positions gained for him. Looks like Miller had just enough fuel to get to the line. Nash and Latham were catching him, but it's going to be P8 for Chris Miller at the very end.
The key thing in that situation is to realise 5 laps to go. I've got to make some big savings here rather than get to the last lap and go, I've only got half a tank of fuel left. So the earlier you know you got a problem, the more you can do something about it. And I thought maybe Jason Fewens was going to have the same.
Whoa,
Chad
whoa,
Lewis,
whoa.
hello, you're not going to catch him doing that.
Yeah, some high-speed lawn mowing there on the run to the line for Chad Lewis. And Matty Parker up 15 spots to grab 22nd position. I think we have a true contender for our Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day there. Great drive after not taking part in qualifying and managing to elevate himself through the field there. Michael Whiting, meanwhile, has gotten past Stewie Hall, and it's actually going to be 29th in the end. Craig Friend running out of fuel on the way to the start-finish line. Can he make it is the question. There's only 1 minute and 10 seconds on the timer here before the race is officially declared official. He's trying. He's trying. Oh, he's just losing speed. I don't think Craig Friend's going to make it.
No.
Oh,
Hey,
he's getting a
hang on.
push. He's getting some help from Dan Hall. Oh, how do you like it? That's fantastic. Dan Yeaman in the background. It ain't a push. It's some bump drafting. Yes, at something approaching school zone speeds, it seems. But yeah, round of applause for Dan Hall, everybody. Helping Craig Friend to the line there. Good camaraderie in the V8 Veterans Championship. Well, that's going to conclude the racing portion of the evening's activities. And we can go through our results and have a chat to our drivers, as well as select our driver of the day. Scott Gamble, Sean McNamara, and Luke Grundle are your podium here at Mugello. Matt Vanderkraan losing 2 spots, unfortunately, but still very solid top 5 run. Same for Michael Stewart as well, gaining only 1 spot, but a strong race nonetheless. Jeff Thomas up 3 spots. Brilliant drive. Latter and Miller finish where they started in 7th and 8th, with David Nash and John Latham just about catching Miller on the final lap to round out the top 10. In 11th place, Paul Warwick, 34 seconds behind, wins the battle of Queensland place names with Damien Cairns there. Lucky 13th for Travis Hunt. And then Logan Barnett crossing the line in 14th. Unfortunately, just couldn't get the run that he needed. Poynton rounds out the top 15 with Crisdale, Smart, Stone Street, Doble, and Fewens to round out our top 20. And then we move to Chad Lewis. Well, he unfortunately caused an incident out on track and carried damage all the way to the end. Matty Parker up 12 spots to complete the top 22 cars. Goosey, McCune, and Crosby 25th place there, with Kirby finishing ahead of John Gallen and Gary Buckland, who had a rollicking battle in the final couple of laps. Michael Whiting and Stewie Hall rounding out our 30 top finishers, with Craig Friend and Dan Hall last finishers on the lead lap. We saw Dean Flavell and Greg Sharp both finish the race, albeit a lap down. So good to see the runs there from all of them. We're going to go to our driver interviews first off, and the first one to join us will, of course, be Scott Gamble. Congratulations, Scotty, on another victory there. Very tough track for these cars.
Yeah, how you going, Reese? Thank you very much, mate. It is a tough track. It's a really flowing track, and as soon as you get like even 5-10% extra brake on, it really slows up that momentum. So yeah, it's a really good track. I think it'd make a great enduro track because it opens itself up to so much strategy, especially with fuel saving that. But yeah, I enjoy Mugello. It was really good fun, and yeah, awesome to see Sean up there. He found pace as the race went on, and Luke, he was strong as ever.
Yeah, very good result for 9.5 Sim Sports, getting the 1-2 there. So in terms of the team standings, certainly working out well for you guys once again. Yeah,
it is. Sean's missed a race or two here and there, but he was absolutely flying tonight, especially halfway through the race. He really found his form. So absolutely awesome to have a teammate in Reese, and to be able to race with, and Logan as well. He had a good run. I mean, he finished down in P14. So 3 in the top 15 is a good result for 9.5, and bloody stoked.
Yeah, as you should be. Well, we go to Motorland Aragon for the next round of the series on Halloween Eve. What are your thoughts about that place? It's certainly another motorcycle track, so probably not the best suited to these cars, but there's plenty of sharp corners there we can really square off the exits.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't know, Reese. I've got to buy the track. I haven't driven on it, so I've got no idea about it, mate.
Well, it's going to be a learning experience for you, Mr. Gamble. Well, congratulations on yet another victory added to your massive tally in this series. Is there anyone you give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, look, shout out to Sean. It was a hard night last night. We had Pro Series and, yeah, tough night for me. Sean drove really well. He finished in the top 15 there, so congratulations to him. And follow up with a P2 tonight. To Luke, he's solid as awesome driver, and Matt, really good to see him up in the top 5, and Michael Stewart as well. Super consistent he's been, so really good on them. And to the rest of the drivers, well done. To the race control, thank you very much. They do an awesome job, and to you guys over at SimSpeed, absolutely love your broadcasts, and I watch them, and I look forward to going back and watching this later. So I'll leave all the other sponsors, team sponsors, to Sean. But yeah, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Yeah, enjoy the show later on, Scotty. We regret to inform you we didn't give you much airtime because you were so far in front. But regardless, congratulations. Right. Hopefully see you next time.
Cheers, guys. See ya.
Scott Gamble there. Next up, looks like Sean McNamara here with David Haynes for the second place interview.
Well, your profile picture is a Commodore, but today, Sean, you're in the Mustang. What's the change of scenery?
Just parity issues. Just decided to try and do something for the Ford. I can't go to Gamble with the Commodore, but just something different. So we haven't got these cars for much longer, so thought I'd run the Mustang.
No safety cars today like we had at Long Beach, for example, that really threw the strategy on its head. So you went for quite a long first stop and then leapfrogged them all with that quick second stop.
Yeah, actually, my spotter didn't call me, so I had to save fuel on that extra lap I did because the boys pitted and I looked down and I didn't really have enough to finish another lap. So that threw me, but yeah, I thought I'd overfuel a bit in that first stop. Sort of prep was pretty poor coming to this. I'd only done a handful of laps, so really by mid-race is where I found a rhythm. I thought, well, by then, hopefully the second stop I can put some less fuel in, but it sounds like Luke overfueled a little bit in that second stop, which helped me. But yeah, it was good. It was good. No safety car. Obviously a bit of a long race, but it's a shorter one too. So good track, good fun.
It always feels like the strategy is a little bit sort of between a rock and a hard place. Sometimes it's really dictated by those fuel numbers. Sometimes it can feel really dictated by what the tires are doing. And this is a circuit where it feels like you're always braking, turning, and the tires change much across a stint because of that.
Yeah, a little bit. I was surprised once I got used to lines and trail braking again. It's funny, like you're always learning stuff, and J-Mac did a good job on the setup. And I shouldn't say learning, but relearning things. And you come to a track like this where trail braking is so important. I guess it just relearns and retrains the brain to improve that as you go. But look, tire wear was pretty good. Front left copped the hiding around here, but the rest of it wasn't too bad. And if you squared the car up off the corners and didn't try and lean on it too much, it was actually really good. So cool track helps that, but yeah, it was nice. You can still save a bit of fuel here and there, and you didn't drop too much lap time doing it. So it was good fun. Setup was good, and it was it was nice.
Now, 2 scoops of gelato. What flavor combination are you going for?
Salted caramel, and then I don't know, just a good old vanilla, I reckon.
Man after my own heart.
Couple waffle cone.
What was that one?
Cup or waffle cone?
Cup.
Okay, good. I'm stretching that out way too far. Congrats on your podium. Congrats on your strategy there. And you've been given another sort of a hospital hand pass by our race winner, Scott Gamble. You've got to list all the sponsors. Otherwise, your team's in trouble.
Well, I'd hope I'd know them. Firstly, thanks to you guys, SimSpeed, all the league organisers, J-Mac for the setups. Massively appreciate it. It makes it really easy when under prep to be able to just jump in and know there's a dock ready to go. So big thanks to everyone a part of the league. Scotty, Logan, well done to Scott again tonight. And of course, Luke, well done. RaceKraft Simulations, RSW Graphics, Turn In Race Apparel, Racing News Custom Ears Protection, and Prestige Cinematography are our wonderful sponsors that make it happen. So thanks all.
Beauty, we'll see you for the rest of the season.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Brilliant stuff from Sean McNamara there, second on the road here at Mugello. And to round things off here, it looks like Luke Grundle, our third place finisher, will be joining us lastly. Well, Luke, started third, finished third, but the numbers don't tell the full story.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a bad race. It's disheartening when you're driving your guts out and Gamble's pulling away, but no, it was fun. Me and Macca had a bit of a battle, and yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it certainly looked like a battle of the pit stops. What was your view on the strategy? Because seemed like there were big groups of drivers pitting all at a time on successive laps there. Do you feel like you made the right decisions?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've had to do a pit stop. I usually drop out before I've got to do one of those, but yeah, I think I overfueled on the second stop. I finished with probably 2 or 3 laps worth of fuel, so that built that gap out to Sean, and yeah, just couldn't pull it in. I was just managing the gap to Matty, and yeah, that was good.
Yeah, manage the gap you did, and it's a podium and a big haul of points coming into the next round when we jump across the Mediterranean to Spain. I asked this question to Scott Gamble, and he said he needs to buy the track. Do you also need to buy Motorland Aragon, or can you give us some pointers on how that'll go?
Also need to buy that one.
Yeah.
Had to buy this one too, so yeah, she was a big learning curve. I was actually getting quicker through the race. You could see a bit of green popping up, so yeah, big learning curve, but she'll be right.
Yeah, will be a learning curve for Aragon as well. Pro tip, turns 7 and 8. Very crucial indeed. Well,
Gotcha.
Congratulations, Luke, on your podium. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I guess our main sponsor, Sheer Genius, he bought us pizzas once, so we're obliged to put a sticker on the car. Yeah, that's probably our main supporter. He watches every race, every split, so he's a good dude.
Excellent stuff. Congratulations once again, Luke. Hopefully chat to you next time.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
057, Luke Grundle. Rounding things off there for the interviews, and we have one more shout out to give here, David. We've selected our driver of the day with 12 spots up. It is Matty Parker, your Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day. No lap time in qualifying to 22nd place. Big gains through the field, and he certainly put on a show on his way to it.
Even picked up a couple of spots late on past Darren Goosey and even past Scott McCune as he had his little adventurous run. So yeah, big moves through the field. Matty Parker, relatively clean race. Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day. I checked their opening hours. There's a bunch of them around Sydney that are still open if you need a late night snack.
Yeah, maybe head out and grab yourself a bite to eat from Chubby Buns Burgers. Thanks very much for all of your support of the V8 Veterans Series over the last few seasons. Well, we'll see who gets that Driver of the Day award next time at Motorland Aragon. Man, this is such a good track. Really awesome racetrack, this one. I can't wait to see how the V8s tackle it. It's another circuit with curbs that are quite flat, but unlike Mugello, there's some pretty extensive sausage curbs there. We'll see who'll be eating hot dogs by the end. And that's going to round things off for this round of the RaceKraft V8 Veterans Championship, Season 21, Round 6. Once again, going to Scotty Gamble. We'll see how he fares in Spain next week here on SimSpeed TV, live on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes with me in the comms box, and Dan Yeaman producing behind the scenes. We'll see you next time.